Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. It is April Fool's Day.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, Eric's the fool.
I'm the fool.
Does that make me April?
Maybe.
Speaking of April Fools, I've got the curtain's open and it's casting a weird glare on my face. Hold on a second, Eric. Carry the show for a few seconds.
Oh yeah, we got a glare coming off of a vehicle.
That's
window.
the April Fools, apparently.
Yeah. I feel bad I wasn't here yesterday for the show. Big show yesterday, recapping and highlighting the big hire with Ben Jacobson. I was at the press conferences earlier in the day, the introductory press conference, and the meetings that we were able to hold later with Cam Walker and with Brad Mortensen and Ben Jacobson. So I was there for all of that, but had other things happening Tuesday afternoon, so I wasn't able to be here on the show to give my reactions to that. But we'll get to more of that today. And just as maybe now that it's set in, you've had 24 hours or more now to let it kind of marinate that this guy has now been introduced. You've heard from him. Maybe you've had a little bit more time to look into his background. Are you feeling any different today after spending some more time thinking about Ben Jacobson as a new head coach for Utah State? But before we get into that, as Jason said, it's April 1st. Famous for pranks and hijinks, April Fools. And there's been a good number of April Fools things going on in sports, especially among college athletics. Now, a few years ago, Utah State pulled a prank, which turned out to be something that actually came to fruition with the Battle Cattle helmets. And that turned out to be a huge success, a wild success. Everybody thought that was awesome, so they actually implemented it the following, a few months later, and now it's becoming a regular thing. Yeah. Beyond just the helmets, then they started doing that in the herd. Well, so Utah State football takes that one step further today and announcing a new field design on Merlin Olsen Field, implementing the Holstein cow look on the field.
Yeah, and that one, I know there's some people that are still saying, hey, I still kind of like that. Wes Brooks chiming in with that same thought. I was like, yeah, I know it's a joke. Like, this time it is very clearly a joke. Yes. Like, last time it was like, hey, can this please not be an April Fool's joke with the helmets? But this time it's like, yeah, we know. But there's still a lot of people that were having fun with it. Like, I'm sure if Utah State, actually did that, they'd get some kickback from the fans, although there'd be a lot that would lean into it. But yeah, I remember and I wrote a story about it too on Cache Valley Daily when they ended up fully implementing it as an actual idea. I kind of wrote a story, talked to some of the people in the athletics department, hey, how did this come about? And talking about how, it was just something they threw together. They had a bunch of pictures of the football helmets already for promo work they were going to do later on. And somebody who actually ended up leaving the athletic department kind of over the summer, just nothing crazy. It's just people changed jobs, and that happened. Yeah. The person who kind of came with that idea left, but they just said, hey, let's just draw some cow spots on here and have that be an April Fool's joke. But yeah, it turned out to be amazing to the point where I am dead serious when I say that the Battle Cattle helmets should be the primary helmet for the Aggies. Whenever they wear white helmets, they should be wearing those helmets. I think that would be it's an iconic look.
It's a great look. Yeah. I mean, embrace the fact that you're an agricultural college. I mean, yes, there are some Holsteins with the dairy industry. It's big, but embrace it. And Utah State has, the herd did it for basketball, which was awesome.
Yeah,
how they were able to execute that. But on the football field, yeah, it might be a little bit.
Yeah, on the literal football field, it's something that I would not suggest. I have been a vocal critic of Boise State's act of collective delusion that is their Smurf turf.
Yes.
Of course, as a somewhat common theme for April Fools is schools to announce this an off-color field. Duke did it a couple of years back. I think the same year that Utah State did its April Fools, Duke announced that they were going to do a blue field. This year, I think Kentucky did it. And of course, Utah State going way into left field by announcing a cow print field. Although the funny thing is that Boise State, they were locked and loaded for April Fool's Day. They had pictures, in responses of their trademark that they hold and that they're very proud that they have a trademark of. I know. Basically off-color fields.
My word. Come on.
And I'm not a legal expert, and so I'm very much going out of my, zone of knowledge. But even acknowledging my shortcoming of legal knowledge and precedent and all that, I am very confident in saying that if someone stood up to Boise State's trademark, that they want to pretend that they own the idea of a non-green field, they would lose that battle. Yes, the U.S. Trademark Office gave them a trademark. And while they have technically shut down teams, namely I think they shut down a high school, and technically the other schools that have off-color fields have received Boise State's oh-so-gracious permission. Granted, I don't think they really impose any strict, the Utah State or Boise State, as far as I understand, are not being particularly overbearing in granting these licenses, but they do have conditions, as I understand it. But that's because it's Eastern Washington and coastal Carolina, and again, a high school, teams that are relatively smaller and who don't want to bother trying to litigate the point.
Yeah.
They're not really paying any money. They're not paying royalties to Boise State for that, off-color field. So just go along with what Boise State's, say, yes, Boise, we will obey your magnanimous, rules so that we can have our turquoise field. They're just playing along with Boise State so they don't have to go to court over it.
It's silly because it seems like every year some school will say, hey, look at the color of our field. And last year it was Arizona State saying we're going to do a maroon field.
Yeah.
Clemson did one where it's kind of a purple with brown or with orange or kind of deeper blue. But anyway, so there's other schools that do this hey, we're announcing we're changing the color of our fields. And with Kentucky doing theirs, Boise's hey, now, enough of this. This isn't funny.
Yeah.
We have a special field now, and we have a special permission. Yeah. You can't do this without our permission now.
I'll say this. If it were someone going after a blue field like Kentucky or Duke, Boise would win that battle. They have a trademark on their blue field. It is theirs. You would have a heck of a time getting a blue field, even if you're a Duke or a Kentucky. Although it would, if Kentucky really wanted to do it, I'm sure they could. But imagine, and I said this on social media earlier, say Georgia for whatever, or since Clemson, they have a purple, they tried, again, it was a joke, but say they did a purple field, or Arizona State did a maroon field. If Boise State tried to say, hey, we have this trademark, they would get smacked down so hard, their turf might actually turn green. They would get bullied to heck and back in court. And while they probably wouldn't actually go to court, it would settle. And to be honest, Boise might actually take some payment as a settlement. But if they tried to say, hey, you have to do what we say, Georgia, they'd get swatted aside. Their trademark doesn't actually have any bearing. It's basically just fun pretend times with Boise State Smurf turf.
I like that. Fun pretend times. That's very good.
So but again, the whole blue field with Boise State is, again, the fact that everyone says they like it is one of the biggest examples of collective delusion, because it is not cool. No. It does not look good. It
doesn't.
And anybody who ever goes to that, they say, oh, people come to see Boise State's blue field. Yeah, to watch at it in the same way they watch a train wreck.
It's you can't look away. It's so horrific.
So that's kind of where that's at.
And they just pump each other up because they know it's so bad and no one else likes it. So it's it's tribalism, right?
Everyone has
I have to defend my tribe.
Yeah, everyone's it's so great, right? Yes,
right,
fellow fan,
it's
great.
Huh?
It's all great. We love go blue.
Yeah. It's a couple other of April Fool's jokes going around in athletics. Tarleton State, who hired Eric Hout, who was on Jared Calhoun's staff, to be the next head coach, issued a statement today saying, we are incredibly sorry to hear about the recent 12 tons of Kit Kats that were wrongfully stolen. We wish you the best in the recovery of your goods. On a completely unrelated note, we are proud to announce our brand new court set to debut this upcoming fall. And the court looks like it's entirely made of Kit Kat.
Yeah. I've seen a bunch of different like
chocolate bars.
I've seen a bunch of different companies having like fun with that. Like mind you, there were screenshots. I don't know if they were official, official. There would have been joke statements. Social media businesses trying to be fun. And there was one from like Domino's saying, "We're really sorry about the loss of all those Kit Kats. On an unrelated note, we are now offering a Kit Kat pizza." Yes. And then like Denny's was like, it happened between like 1 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. and we were completely busy at the time. Suspicious knowledge of the exact details and stuff like that. So there's a lot of fun stuff with that. But I don't know who steals with like 12 tons.
Yeah, 12 tons.
What are you supposed to do with 12 tons of Kit Kats?
I don't know, but they said that I actually has a statement in front of me here. The folks with Nestle say the good news is that there are no concerns for consumer safety and supply is not affected. But 12
how much supply do they have?
How much do you have in reserve?
How can you tank 12 tons? Like, there are only a handful of things that can just shake off losing 12 tons
12
of their
tons
substance.
Of anything.
Like the the ocean can handle that pretty well, but it's because it has trillions of tons. That's just crazy. But yeah, if you have any stories of April Fool's pranks, feel free to send them in on the text line. We can have some fun throughout the day. We promise we're not pulling any April Fool's jokes on you today. I promise, and I'm being dead serious. Unless Eric has something planned, if he plans on pranking me, but
not from my vantage point here.
Maybe I should post on social media later today because I still have that video of me rickrolling you.
I was going to say, be careful which video you play today. Maybe a rickroll.
Yeah, I'll have to go and double check all of the videos we have on here. But yeah, so that's if you have any thoughts there. 9315 actually sending us in a story, and it's about some elders in Brazil. We don't quite have time to go over what sounds like was a very thrilling adventure for a couple of elders in Brazil. Although Eric
is way off topic. So.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that. No,
we don't have time for that. We have a couple of texts coming in. 5452 asking, "I do feel a little better about the coaching hire now, but those feelings will be more cemented in the next 3 weeks. Which players he's able to retain and who he is able to get out of the portal. Let's see what kind of roster he is able to put together."
Yeah, that's fair. That's a really great point. It's like because we've seen sometimes somebody wins a press conference, but they lose the locker room.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've seen it the other way around too. So there are things in his resume and what he did in the press conference that all sounds nice. But what's he? How is he going to be able to navigate the portal and keeping his own roster?
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing because I don't think Ben Jacobson really impressed a ton of people with his press conference, mind you.
I don't know. I had a lot of comments, people saying, "Wow, I'm really impressed with that guy."
I heard a couple of things kind of the other way, where he's not a super charismatic person, and those are the kind of people that tend to win press conferences.
Right.
If you're charismatic and energetic, and Ben Jacobson just isn't. I mean, that's the way Bronco Mendenhall is.
Right,
and it's why I emphasize.
It's not like I feel like I got to go get a jersey on right now, and I want to go get on the court to play and bleed for this guy.
It's like when Craig Smith came in, he was telling a bunch of crazy stories, and one about like punching a snake or something like that, and you wanted to run through a wall for him. But you don't have to be like that because for me, it's not about winning the press conference because not a single coach has ever won a game because they won a press conference.
Yeah.
Like it means literally nothing. And so to me, it's more about, is 5452 is going on about like what roster are you putting together? You're talking a big game about, the resources going into the Pac-12, how that's going to help the program. We'll put together a roster that's going to compete in the Pac-12. There was a ton of talk about making it to the Sweet 16, or at least the Sweet 16, the second weekend of the tournament, as they're often referring to it as, bringing up the Aggies getting a 9 seed this year. A lot of talk about all that stuff. Well, now go put together a roster that is capable of getting to the second weekend. A lot of talk about, meeting all these financial goals without having to dip into the buyout money you got from Jared Calhoun leaving. It's a lot of talk, but you got to go out there and do that. And Ben Jacobson, he's got to be part of that fundraising effort in a similar way that Jared Calhoun was. And he might have to do some of what Jared Calhoun did, where Calhoun was like the second or third highest donor to the retention fund. He might have to help with that. If he wants to have the most success, he's got to be as invested as the program as Jared Calhoun was, literally. I know Calhoun ended up kind of leaving very suddenly, but when he was here, up until that Monday when he left, he was 100% invested in the program. And Jacobson's got to be that as well. And that's something that's not going to show up in the press conference. You're not going to prove that in the press conference. They said all the right things they needed to say. You know, he wasn't super charismatic. He tried to get a cheer out of the crowd, with the herd. Nobody really said anything because...
Yeah. Cam tried to get a cheer out of the herd too.
And neither of them are charismatic enough to like the tone of their speech isn't energetic enough to suddenly like, all right, now let's get all energetic. Like they're not that kind of people. But you don't have to be. Bronco Mendenhall, doesn't have a whole lot of outward charisma, at least, in interactions with the public and with the fans. But he is a guy that his players would run through hell and back and then do it again for him. So you don't need that, outward charisma that, to be that kind of motivator and to be an effective coach. So even if Ben doesn't have those things and didn't showcase them in the press conference, it is about what he is about to do over these next 3 weeks. What does his team look like on about April 30th? Because that's, the portal will have closed at that point. That's when, maybe I'd say like May 15th, because they're not going to have the full roster put together a week after the portal closes because it takes time to get guys on visits and all that. So by mid-May, you're going to have about 80% of the roster probably. So, but, again, the next 3 weeks, that'll take us until the end of the portal. How many players do you still have on this roster that haven't entered the portal? What players are you starting to bring in? That's going to be a big key for Ben Jacobson.
Another quick text. I want to get back to some of the Ben Jacobson stuff in a minute, but 8968, getting back to the April Fool's stuff regarding other athletic programs announcing colored turf. 8968 says Boise has the right to the blue field and they can keep it.
Yeah. It's like me having a trademark on, molasses covered Oreos. It's like,
wow, that's interesting.
I tried to come up with something stupid and it took me a second. Although I have a cousin who dips her Oreos in ranch.
What?
And that is an actual thing that I have seen.
Oh my word. Is that legal?
Apparently. she's not in prison yet. But yeah, so it's like having a trademark on something like that. You're going to be the only one who really wants it. And trying to flex that you have a patent or a trademark, so there is a difference. I want to say that right. But bragging that you have a trademark on the ugliest field in college football isn't the bragging that you think it is.
Yeah, it's like that's not a pat on the back moment. But if it prevents other schools from getting into the silliness of coloring their fields in just crazy, stupid colors, then maybe it's okay that they have this trademark.
Yeah.
Because I could not imagine watching a full season of football at Eastern Washington. Like my eyes would bleed.
Yeah,
I mean, that red is just...
I don't think I could ever...
unnatural.
Like, heaven forbid I ever have to leave this job and go cover someone else. But like, if for some reason, I'm offered a job to go cover Boise State, I'm like, I'm not sure I could do it. Having to look at that monstrosity of a field.
But let us know if you saw any other April Fool's hijinks from athletic programs out there. Utah State with their Holstein field. Kentucky did the blue field thing. Certainly we've seen the battle cattle helmets for Utah State. And something that started as an April Fool's joke, but then turned into like, hey, this actually might be kind of cool. The Kit Kat Court at Tarleton State. So if you see any others, if you've seen any others that maybe we've missed, let us know on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Also want to continue to get your reactions to Ben Jacobson, introduced as the next head coach for Utah State, and other things that happened that day. Because we heard some interesting stuff from Cam Walker. We heard some interesting stuff from Brad Mortensen as well. And so we'll get into that. And I didn't get a chance to share my thoughts about the press conference and the introductory presser, that how he was introduced. So I'll get a chance to share some of my thoughts on that as well coming up on the Full Court Press.
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen with you here on I think it's a Wednesday. Is that what today is?
It is for a few more hours.
For a few more hours. I've been losing track of days. The last few days have been a blur. One, at the office, there's a lot going on.
Oh my.
I had to move my entire cubicle and put it into a box and move, basically turn one of the studios into my office.
We've had a lot of disruption in the building the last few days.
Then
we're not done.
And in doing that, I'm also trying to do a bunch of film analysis, which I'm not necessarily that great at film analysis. So I'm trying to learn and trying to figure out Ben Jacobson, like his offensive and defensive schemes for an article I'm putting together. So we'll see how well that goes. I'm making good strides though. We'll see if I can get out by like the end of the week. I can't guarantee it'll come out.
Good luck.
Yeah,
good luck.
That's probably the best thing to say.
I wish you well, Jason Walker.
Yeah, it's when you're trying to learn a bunch of this stuff. Like I can get into the numbers and stuff, but like getting into film and all that, it's an area of learning for me. But I'm trying to pass that learning on to everyone else as part of my coverage of Utah State. So, Eric, you were at the press conference yesterday. You were there, asking questions. You were up there when we went to the Founders Suite, had a chance to sit down for another 20 minutes after the public kind of presentation and press conference. What were your thoughts on all the different things that were said by Coach Jacobson, Cam Walker, and Brad Mortensen?
Well, it was about 8 minutes with Brad Mortensen, about 15 with Cam Walker, and 22 with Ben Jacobson. Now, I know those are very specific numbers, but I know that because I was looking at my videos yesterday. We spent a lot of time with these guys yesterday between the introductory presser for fans and alumni and people in the community to be there to our one-on-one conversations with them. And I really thought that our one-on-one conversations were more informative. It was a more relaxed atmosphere, and it was a little more intimate. We're all sitting around a table asking questions. Because when you're in a big introductory press conference, there's a lot of platitudes and stuff you got to say, but it's hard to get down to the really nitty gritty. And I know they kind of pass the mic and give us chances to ask a few questions, but it's like there's stuff I want to get into, but I don't know how much he's really going to. Because your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, I can actually do that. The thing there is that when you're in that larger press conference, you're playing to a crowd. And even though anytime they get in front of a mic and are talking to us, they understand that they are, anything they say can and will be thrown into an article. Yeah. So like you don't want to say anything dumb, but like it does end up being a little bit more intimate in that they're willing to, have a bit more of a conversation. It's still a bit performative. But when you're standing at a podium and there's 100+ people there, it's hard to kind of get into that, one-on-one between a reporter and a coach where, there can be a lot of great things and details that coaches will go into once they kind of get down, they're sitting across from each other and having that interview conversation.
Yeah, so all that being said, we, on Monday when this news was coming about, we kind of had some of our reservations, some things we liked about Ben Jacobson, some things we had concerns about, and we both were grading it like at a B+. I don't know if your grade has changed after the last few days. I'm kind of like with the texture, like I got to wait to see what the roster looks like.
Yeah, I'm saying like nothing about a press conference is going to change my opinion about how good a coach is. It'll alter my opinion of who they are as a person and what they're like individually, and that's nice information to have, but what is a press conference going to tell me about how a coach recruits and all that?
Yeah, before Tuesday morning, like I knew I was able to gather information about his resume. I could look at statistics. I could look at results. I could see what his history has looked like, but I didn't know the man. And I mean, we only spent, like I said, 22 minutes together, and we had the other big press conference.
Didn't even have a chance to shake his hand, so it's not like we were spending much time talking.
I mean, I have a better idea of who he is as a man and as a coach, and I feel better about this hire with some of that information, but I'm still reserving, I guess, final judgment until we actually see the product on the floor. How recruiting goes is going to be really interesting, building his roster, but I'm still not really going to know until like mid-December, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we're not going to see any, the first glimpses we'll get, or maybe he'll have an open practice or something. I don't know if he'll do that the same way Jared Calhoun did, where he had a lot of open time for media. He wanted to get the message out there. But yeah, as far as true on-court stuff, yeah, we're not going to know until November.
Yeah.
And even then, like as you said, not really truly knowing until you get some volume in there, and that doesn't happen, as you said, until
home,
December.
Away, neutral site. But I will say this, like I am more encouraged after spending time with him and visiting with him and asking him questions to see how he would react to the questions we threw at him. And we didn't throw weird questions at him. We didn't throw controversial questions at him. But there were multiple times where he had opportunities to criticize his former employer or his former community, to say that, gosh, I had to get out of there because they didn't have resources. I had to get out of there because they wouldn't build me a practice facility, even though I've begged for one for years. I had to get out of there because I didn't have an NIL budget. I had to get out of there because it was in a one-bid league. He had ample opportunities to do that multiple times, and he never did.
Yeah.
So I think it speaks to his character as a man and as a coach that, given lots of opportunities to not just to badmouth or to put down his former place, he didn't. And he took, and not to say that we were trying to set him up for that, but multiple times he was asked, you didn't have much when you were at Northern Iowa. And he never really said, you're right, I really didn't have anything. But look what I did, even though I had nothing. He never took that approach, even though we gave him multiple opportunities to take that approach.
Yeah.
So I was impressed with how he handled himself, how he reflected on where he had been and what he has done with his coaching staff and with his players. And I think that's really going to resonate with the community here. And I think people in this community are really going to it's going to be easy for them to get behind Ben Jacobson. Maybe not a big firebrand personality, but who he is and how he commits his business. There are going to be a lot of people in this community that are really going to appreciate that.
Yeah, and it speaks to the actions. I know we're talking about words, but there are kind of actions contained within some of the words that he has. I mean, you're talking about, not bad-mouthing the previous university, and unless you're Campbell's former head coach, you're not going to be almost explicitly bad-mouthing anybody. Yeah. Well, we might dive into that later.
We'll get into that later, but yeah.
But like Jared Calhoun, when he was doing the introductory press conference at Cincinnati, he certainly praised Utah State and offered those words, but also talking about how, and he said the words, Utah State is a top 30 job. But then he's like, well, they were a 9 seed, and that was saying something. And it's like this kind of subtle shot at Utah State saying they can't go anywhere because, winning the Mountain West doesn't mean anything.
Well, Calhoun had multiple shots that he fired across the bow for Utah State. We did this, and we didn't get a dime from the university. And it's like, okay. But I don't mean to compare and contrast, but there were times where
that's an example. And
things would happen.
Yeah, and even though like Jared Calhoun deserves praise for some of his actions,
yes,
talk about being invested. Like his actions speak louder than maybe some of the words he eventually said.
He literally put his money where his mouth is.
And the thing is with Ben Jacobson, his actions, like you could say the action of like not, again, saying words. Like I know actions speak louder than words. I'm kind of counting words as action, but hopefully I'm explaining the nuance there. But to be honest, the biggest thing was the action he did before he even arrived in Logan. He was doing a goodbye presser. Like where so many coaches leave.
That never happens.
Yeah, they leave without a trace. Jared Calhoun, I don't know, he got off the plane and then he snuck into a limo, caught the next plane for Cincinnati. Like he was gone. Danny Sprinkle, pretty much the same thing. Craig Smith, out the door, on the phone with the AD telling him he was going to come back, and then he never showed up back in Logan. Like just leaving the middle of the night or even the middle of the day, just like not even, saying goodbye, essentially. Barely even managing to say goodbye to the players.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Jacobson could have flown in, like the second that announcement, he could have just skipped town, left Northern Iowa. But no, he stuck around, did a press conference, took questions from the reporters. I don't know how good their questions were because I couldn't hear him on the press conference, but like it seemed like he was answering some tough questions, and it's kind of awkward sitting there and being like, bye everyone, I'm leaving. But like that's the character of the man who was willing to say, look, I've been here for 25 years. I'm not just going to leave in, ghost town. That is a huge part of him. And to be honest, Utah State is really kind of just renting Northern Iowa's coach. Like, he is their guy. He is their Stu Morrill.
Yeah.
And Utah State, in a sense, is just renting him, saying, hey, we're going to try and take care of him, but he wants to try new and different things, and we're going to take care of him. And Ben Jacobson's actions reflect that attitude, that he is still part of Northern Iowa, and they are still part of him. And so he's invested in the program even after he's leaving. And so that's showing the character of a guy. And I know with a lot of these press conferences, there's just words, but there's actions contained in what he is doing with all of those words. And that speaks to his character as a coach.
Yeah. We've seen the numbers, we've seen the statistics, we've seen the resume, but on Tuesday morning we got to know more of the man, and we got to know more of the coach. We still have to see how he does in recruiting. We still have to see how well he keeps the players intact. But one of the other things that struck me is that he did that press conference as much for the fans that were there, but more of that was doing that as much for those guys that were sitting on the second row, the players who showed up, and for those who were unable to be there. He was multiple times in our availability talked about how anxious he was to get out of his suit and get in the gym with the guys and spend more time with them, because he's done a Zoom call, he's had some conversations with them, but he really hasn't spent a lot of time with them in a gym and just talking ball and talking life, and how he wants to help these guys more than just for one season. He wants to help them for the next 40 years of their life. And that struck me as well. Yeah.
So, well, he did fulfill all of the obligations of photo shoots and all those different things. He went down to Merrill and Olsen Field to talk with Coach Mendenhall.
Yeah, that was a cool video. If you haven't seen that, Mendenhall basically sprints out of what he was doing with drills and practices down to the sideline, to the goal line, to shake Ben Jacobson's hand to welcome him to Utah State officially. And when he was doing his visit, Coach Mendenhall and his wife took Coach Jacobson and his wife to dinner. So I think that speaks volumes to both of those guys and who they are, kind of similar positions in life, but I think that speaks to Bronco Mendenhall's character too.
Yeah, so Ben Jacobson is doing all of the stuff for the PR department and all that kind of stuff, and having to wear the suit that he doesn't like wearing a suit very much. He's probably worn only a handful of times, but he's been in it almost constantly the last few days.
Right.
But he really wanted to go talk to those players, to go meet with them, be in the spectrum with them, probably really wanted to run a practice with them. That's probably one thing he'd love to do, is be like, all right, we're going to run practice. But I don't think he's allowed to do that at all. But we really got the sense, and I think we're even told as much, that Ben Jacobson didn't really want to be around with the media. He wanted to be with the players.
Yeah,
he's fulfilling his obligations like he knows he needs to do. He's been around the block. He knows how the party goes. You got to talk with the media. You got to talk with the fans. Not that I think he didn't want to talk to the fans, but obviously his job as a coach is to coach the players, and so that's priority one. Coach the players, and then kind of that close second is obviously all of his interaction with the fans. But he is there for those players. And to be honest, the way that he connects with the fans and helps the fans the most is by fulfilling that priority one of being there for the players.
Right. And I thought it was interesting, his priorities with the players was, number one, have fun, and number two, watch out for the guy next to you. Do it for the guy next to you. And so just building that connectivity, building that camaraderie, building that loyalty, and having a good time doing it, because it should be fun. It's a sport. You should have a good time doing it. Shouldn't yes, there's a lot of pressure and stress that come with performing in a very public setting, but he wants to make sure he reminds them to have fun.
Yeah, so
it should be fun.
Yeah, basketball's supposed to be fun. This isn't supposed to be that serious. This isn't supposed to be like the NBA, although obviously with all the money getting thrown around, things naturally get more serious. And you are well compensated for the fact that people will be sending you hateful messages on social media. Not that makes it justified. People try and justify that. Oh, we can send hateful messages because they're being paid tens of thousands. No. verbal abuse is never justified, no matter how much you're being paid.
Correct.
Unless you're signing a contract to be verbally abused for money, which to each his own, I guess.
Maybe there's some people who do that.
Yeah, some people, I guess. We got, on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Some more stuff, talk about student fees. I think, Eric, it was you who asked Brad Mortensen about that. Kind of the recent stuff with the student fees not getting the increase that they wanted, the Utah Board of Higher Education or whatever it is.
Yeah, we had a chance. It was on after the over-the-air broadcast concluded. We continued on YouTube discussing this on Friday.
Oh, that's right. That wasn't on the live show.
Because, they had a bunch of stuff, the Utah System of Higher Education, about fees, a big discussion about student fees and athletics for Utah State. So I got a chance to talk to or ask USU President Brad Mortensen about this. And so for those who didn't get to hear it over the air, you'll get to hear his response to some of that's going on with athletics fees and funding and subsidizing athletics as an institution.
Yeah, so that's coming up next here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Amid all the April Fool's stuff, there's history being, remade, because we're going back to the moon.
Yeah.
Not me and Eric.
No, we're not.
But Artemis 2 is set to launch.
Apparently, it's been a successful launch. They are in the air.
They're in the air? That's good. And so they're not going to land on the moon. It's kind of like some of the initial Apollo missions where they go to the moon and around the moon, and they'll come back. So I don't know the exact details of everything that they're going to do, but like everything NASA does, it comes in a lot of stages. Yeah,
but hey, you know what? Shout out to all the folks around here who work over at Northrop Grumman, we should be Thiokol, and help build these rockets. I mean, we had people here in our community who helped build the rockets that are sending people back to the moon.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to
That
think
is
about.
very cool.
Something that's part of this community here in Cache Valley.
Yes. So it looks like it's been a successful launch. The boosters have separated. So far that I've been able to see, everything looks like it's going well.
So best of luck to the extraterrestrial travelers.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty exciting stuff.
So let's shift toward the student fees. I was like, what are we talking about again?
Student fees.
Student fees.
Yeah, so on Friday, Utah State officials met with the Utah System of Higher Education to discuss their proposal for increased fees or decreased fees. There's a chance you can decrease your fees as well, especially as it relates to tuition. And there are a variety of different fees that could be included for students. And Utah State came to that meeting proposing a nearly 25% increase, a one-time increase of 25% for athletics, and about a 20% increase for recreation. And so there's a lot of discussion about that. Like, this is big. This is a big ask. You're already asking a lot of your students, and you're asking more. And so essentially, there's a lot of discussion about how this model is broken. Institutions are being asked to subsidize athletics way too much, and they are really concerned about leaning on students too much. And the justification from Utah State was, well, we're making this transition into the Pac-12. It's going to be a little bit of kind of an expense here, and we got to get our footing to figure out how to compete at that level. So we're looking for funds to help us get there. Bottom line, they disagreed with the just for 1 year, 25% increase, and instead said, we'll give you a 9% increase that's annual, it's recurring, and then you reduce the recreation increase from like 20% down to like little more than 4%. So vastly different than what they were asking for. So I got a chance to ask President Mortensen about what happened last Friday, and as an institution, the challenges that they face with trying to help subsidize athletics. Students.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a delicate balancing act because we definitely want to keep our costs to attend Utah State affordable. First and foremost, we're an academic institution. We did propose a fee increase. It went through several processes with our students to get the backing of the overall student body to propose that fee increase. We know at the end of the day that it's the role of the Utah Board of Higher Education to make the final decisions on that, and we presented it to them, and we have some more homework to do, I think, on athletics issues overall. There was a lot of talk in the meeting on Thursday. This was on Friday that they actually voted on that. In the meeting on Thursday, we spent a lot of time talking about athletics. What is the role of athletics in higher education for the University of Utah, for Utah State, for our regional schools? And there will continue to be conversations about that. I feel that it is vitally important for our athletics programs to be successful and to be able to have the support of those. At the same time, we have to balance the overall cost of that, and that's a challenge in today's world, but something that we're committed to trying to figure out. In the meantime, we'll continue to try to look at all of our other revenue sources and figure out how to optimize those as best we can. But then we're going to also just be the smartest at how we spend our money too, in terms of all of the aspects that go into having a successful athletic program.
And just as a follow-up, if I may, the impact and stress on an institution to fund athletics.
Yeah.
Utah State Athletics really relies heavily on the institution, whether that's through student fees or through funding sources
as well.
Institutional subsidies. So can you comment on that and just where you still see things going with that move into the Pac-12?
Yeah, we kind of are benchmarking where our peers in the Pac-12 are at, and our goal is not to be at the top of that list. That's not something that Utah State will ever be, have the most well-funded athletic program in the Pac-12. But we're going to look at all of the sources that we have and figure out how to optimize those. We have to. We will never sacrifice the academic mission or the research mission of the university to support athletics, but at the same time, we'll figure out well, what can we do a little bit differently maybe with how we use our venues for, in addition to athletics events? How do we, gain more philanthropic support? How do we work with corporate sponsors in more creative ways? And there's a lot of examples about that happening right now, and we'll continue to try to leverage all those resources.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting things there with President Mortensen. I think some of the things at the end there were a little bit more enlightening. I mean, kind of reaffirming the fact they know they're never going to be the top spender, and that's not even really their goal. They're not going to be the top spenders in the Pac-12. It's just not going to be something that's realistic or plausible unless, about 5 billionaires decide to move into Logan and become Utah State fans.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something that they're going to, they're going to try and spend as smart as they can, but also be smarter about how they generate revenue. And then on that front, we had the conversation about, using the venues that you have, Merrill and Olsen Field, use that more often, use the Spectrum. They do use the Spectrum for things. It doesn't sit empty the entire year, but even still, there's a lot of empty. Like when I went to Viejas, there were billboards for stuff that was going to happen, like comedy shows or whatnot, or concerts that were going to happen. And of course, they're also hosting the NCAA. I don't think that's going to happen in Logan, but stuff was happening at Viejas Arena that wasn't basketball, and that does happen, but it's still fairly rare with the Spectrum, and it's basically non-existent for Merrill and Olsen Field. So
yeah,
the fact that they are definitely looking at that, going to try something, that's obviously a positive. And then they'll wait out the naming rights so they can get more money out of that too.
Yeah, that's true. So it's tough. Utah State, while it is a burden that is placed on its students, and the athletics leans a lot on the institution, it's not as bad as in other places, but that doesn't mean it's right or it's still good. So they've still got to find some ways to fix some things. And as one of the guys, and I'll end it on this, but as one of the guys on the board for the Utah System of Higher Education, I believe he's a Utah State alum. I think he played football at Utah State even. He said, "Look, this is putting a Band-Aid over a gushing wound." It's like, yeah, it's graphic imagery, but that's what this is. This is not sustainable. Athletics leaning so much on an institution, an academic institution, it's not sustainable. They've got to find some other way to make this work or change the model entirely.
Yeah. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the first hour here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker and Eric on the stream. You're looking a little short there.
So, didn't follow me.
Yeah, the camera didn't follow him down there. Reminder, Napa Auto Parts. They got batteries, headlights, wiper blades, all in stock and on sale now. You get at your local Napa Auto Parts. Air fresheners, shop towels, seafoam, and more. That is the longest bump music I've ever seen in my life.
In contrast to what you had yesterday, where it ended abruptly on you.
Yeah,
I was listening at that time.
It was like 15 seconds. So this one went for a full minute. I was like, is it on loop or something? I'm trying to do my ad read, and it's like, there's music. Am I doing something wrong? Yeah, that's a little weird there. On the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 8968, saying, at one time there used to be concerts in the Spectrum. Why aren't they doing that now? There are also times where they had the NCAA tournament in the Spectrum. Did they actually have the NCAA tournament in the Spectrum?
Could have been. I don't recall. I know that once upon a time they did like jazz exhibition games in there.
You think they could do? Because logistics is the biggest thing. And it's also it's a bit on the smaller end. So I don't know if they would want to do.
Yeah, they tend to like to use NBA arenas or arenas that can fit.
Or larger college arenas. Like Viejas isn't the biggest, but it is still pretty sizable, and I think it fits more than the Spectrum. I'm pretty sure.
It does. It does. It's like 15.
Oh, yeah. That's way more.
Because the pit is...
It's around 15
is 15 to 18. UNLV's Thomas and Mack is about 18.
So, yeah, capacity.
So venues like that are better for the NCAA tournament. The Utah State's just a little too small. Yeah.
So they're probably not going to be having it in Logan anytime soon. That and logistics are tricky because airports and all that. And so.
Right, yeah. Easy in, easy out. Yeah.
That's something that's really important. So we kind of have to take a bit of a smaller segment here. We went long on a few of those early segments. But next hour, we're going to get into some stuff with the Utah Jazz. Sam Merrill returning to Utah, playing the Utah Jazz. Had a decent game against the Jazz, helping the Cavaliers to a win over the Jazz because, well, that's what the Jazz do is they lose. Also, stuff on ghost transfers in the NCAA. The NCAA coming down hard on those. So that's coming up in the next hour here on the Full Court Press and The Fan. Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press second hour. Here with Jason Walker and again Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. And of course, streaming live on YouTube at The Fan KLGN. It's The Fan KLGN. That's the name of the YouTube account. That you can find video streams and archives of those video streams, and basically it's kind of a video podcast essentially.
Yeah, and sometimes even bonus stuff that you don't hear over the air because the last few weeks we were interrupted quite frequently due to the NCAA tournament. And so we just kept things going on the YouTube channel to keep updating other things that were going on. So go check it out, subscribe. That way you get updated every time a new video drops. And you can also leave comments there too. But we love the comments we get on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. And had a couple of questions coming in. So let's jump into those real quick. 2444 asking if there are any plans to have Coach Jacobson on the show in the coming days or weeks.
Yeah, I've already talked to them. I mentioned technically it was even before they officially announced the hire, but it had become, unofficially official. And so I texted them saying, hey, as soon as we can have him on the show, let's have him on. And they responded in, relatively affirmative. There were also other things we were communicating about. So it wasn't explicitly said that we were going to get him on soon, but that was understood as part of that. So we'll be trying to get him on. We were able to get Cam on a little quicker, obviously, but he's already with the university. So it's easier to get him on there where Coach Jacobson obviously has a lot that he's doing. So we're going to try and get him on. We've got more questions to ask. We can get a little bit more detail with some of the things we want and get an idea of how he's going to handle the transfer portal. So there's more things. We had a lot of questions. We had, if you include the question and answer in the public part and the time we had after, we had probably between a half hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you include the portion where he was just doing his introductory comments, you're getting close to an hour's worth of I think you're at 50 plus minutes of Ben Jacobson audio. So there's already a lot that he said, but even after all that, there's some things that we can follow up on, but we'll do our best to get him on the show, and we're also going to get Wes Brooks on the show in the near future as well. And we actually, it's becoming a longer list of coaches we need to have on, including Kristen White, who her women's gymnastics team, they're tomorrow.
Yes, actually, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, shout out to Utah State Gymnastics. They compete tomorrow, 12 o'clock Mountain Time. You can watch it on ESPN+. They are in the Baton Rouge Regional with, they'll compete with 7th-ranked Stanford, 10th-ranked Michigan, and North Carolina. And so,
who are number 22?
Yeah, I guess I didn't see their ranking on there.
Yeah, they're all ranked teams. I think the Aggies are either ranked
26th or something like that. So there's a early session. So there's that one at noon Mountain Time. Then there's a later session, which is LSU, Clemson, Auburn, and then whomever won between Air Force and Nebraska. That would have already taken. Well, that's taking place today. But the Utah State needs to be placed in the top 2 of their grouping with Stanford, Michigan, and North Carolina. If they can compete and have a high enough score to be in the top 2, then they will advance even further and face the top 2 of that other bracket in the Baton Rouge group.
Yeah, so they basically have to beat one of 2 likely. They're going to have to beat North Carolina, which I think there's every chance they can get out, and not to say they will, but they're similarly ranked to North Carolina. That's a team they can certainly compete with, but it's getting over the hump to beat a literal top 10 team in Stanford or Michigan, and that's going to be the big challenge. But last year they were in that, they had to be in a dual meet the day before to then even have a chance to move on to play in the essentially the quad meet that is part of this regional, and that's something that is really difficult to be part of that process. So the fact they're able to kind of skip that this time is something that's an improvement for this squad, and so that'll be a fun thing to look forward to. Also, they're participating in the Pete Maravich Assembly Center.
Yes,
so familiar name there for fans in Utah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. And
Bless you. Bless you twice.
Yeah. They always come in threes. But this was a group that Coach White, that they wanted to get to the Baton Rouge Regional because it's a great venue. It's usually a really good fan base, and that really helps the athletes perform at their best. If you're at a dead venue, that's kind of hard to have that same level of energy and excitement. And Baton Rouge is famous for that LSU campus is famous for really good athletes and great fans participation. So they don't have to compete against LSU in this first bracket, but they get the advantage of having that crowd there to help them.
Yeah,
so they're excited about it. So
that should be really fun for them. And we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep reporting on that as that draws closer, because obviously that's tomorrow is when they'll be competing. So by the time we get on the air,
we'll know their scores.
Yeah, we'll know all about that, and so we'll keep an eye on that as well. So one thing that happened recently was the Utah Jazz welcoming the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Delta Center. And I mean, as is typical for the Jazz, they lost. So it was actually a couple of days ago. We didn't have a chance to talk about this yesterday explicitly. But you had Donovan Mitchell is also another. It's not the first time he's been back in Utah. Obviously, it's been a few years, but still comes back to Utah, ties for the team lead in points for the Cavaliers. He had 34. Evan Mobley had a monster game, 34 points, 17 rebounds.
Yeah.
James Harden had a double-double, only 13 points for him, but he only took 9 shots, and he had 14 assists. So, and one of those assists was to Sam Merrill, who didn't actually have the greatest game, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he went 0 from beyond the arc. One of the best 3-point shooters in the league.
Yeah.
And he went 0 from beyond the arc.
So he does end up with 9 points. He went 4 of 14. So I think he went 4 of 6 inside the arc, which he's, his role with the Cavaliers is mainly to take, 60% of his shots or more are 3-pointers, but he actually got involved in scoring inside the arc, did get a few rebounds, a few assists. He was plus 13 on the court, so even though he had an iffy shooting night, he was still part of some of the better lineups and helping things out. So
he's a starter.
Yeah, so he's a productive player and an impactful player beyond just the 3-point shooting that he does. For the Jazz, really nice line from their starters, a crazy thin rotation though.
Yes.
8-player rotation, which is, you don't see 8-man rotations in the NBA unless you are in the tightest of playoff games and you're also injured a bunch. Like, you're doing 9 or 10-man rotations at minimum usually. And the Jazz went with 8 players. Kennedy Chandler, who I'm just now realizing I have not seen his name in a Jazz uniform yet, so another tribute
That's what's going on in March and April for this team.
Usually I can list off the entire roster of the Jazz, but these last 2 years is like the first time since I was a child that I'll be watching a game and being like, who's that?
It's full of 10-day contracts, 2-way contract guys who get called up from the G League, guys you've never heard of before, that they're just filling a roster spot because they have to. Look, the guys that get on the floor are playing hard. Like, they're competing. They still want to go out and showcase who they are and try to put together some film that highlights their abilities. But Cody Williams, the up and down roller coaster of Cody Williams, there are stretches where I wondered why he was even selected, not just as a 10th pick overall, but why, period.
Why he was taken in the draft at all.
But there have been moments this season where it looks like he's starting to figure some things out. His challenge has been consistency, doing that night in and night out. Last night, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. So, a solid effort by Cody Williams for the Utah Jazz.
But you talk about the consistency. Now, he's had a few more good games than bad games of recently.
Recently, yes.
But you talk about the consistency. So on the 25th, the Jazz they host Washington. Cody Williams plays 37 minutes, goes 11 of 20, has 24 points. Then they go to Denver. The Jazz lose actually a close game. Cody Williams has 24 points. And then at Phoenix, goose egg, 0 points, 0 for 9 from the field, had a couple rebounds, a couple assists, just nothing supplementary. He was minus 31 in that game was really one of the worst players on the court. Well, he follows it up by scoring 26 against, the Cavaliers. And in a game where the Jazz lost by 9, he was only -2 as one of the starters. So it's just that, again, more good than bad in that 4-game stretch. But like 3 good games, mind you, one of them he had 24 points, but he was -18 on the plus minus. But just that one game where it's just like he went back to being a completely useless player on the court. But in some of these other games, he's being a contributing player. But I don't know. Cody Williams is trying his hardest to warm my cold, dead heart when it comes to my thoughts of him. Mind you, I'm sure he stays awake at night thinking about what I
that's his
think
concern.
of him. Like, I'm sure he is very much concerned about what I think of him. But I've basically already written him off, and if he can become a good player, then fine. I'm not going to hate a guy. Like, I wish him the best. But for me, I've already kind of formed an opinion and a conclusion. I've been wrong before, because what was I saying all of last year and the last 2 years about Keontae George? Not that he would be this kind of player.
Yeah.
And I've had to eat some, frankly, not tasty crow, to be honest. It tastes pretty good, being that wrong about Keontae George and where he can potentially go as a player. Can Cody Williams do the same? I mean, Keontae George, he was a late bloomer in terms of efficiency. Can Cody Williams be a late bloomer in terms of his ability to finally develop an impactful game? I don't think that him scoring points is necessarily the way to prove that he can be that. Because
how can he defend? How can he help the team in other ways?
Yeah, because his thing is being that versatile player. Because now with Keontae George, the big thing is he's scoring points. But the difference between Cody Williams and Keontae George is that Keontae's going for 30 plus every other night, and Cody Williams every other night might break 20 on a team where he's like the only half decent player left. He's playing with a bunch of two-way guys. So and Keontae, his role is score, distribute. Ideally, you're going to get some better defense from him eventually. But for Cody Williams, you're a 6'8" wing. You've got to be able to do a little bit of everything. And he's only sometimes doing that. And he really needs to show that he can do a little bit of everything. Now, mind you, a couple of weeks ago, he goes for 34 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. That's a little bit of everything. I think he had a couple blocks too. So there are some nights where he's showing a little bit of that do everything. But I don't know. Part of me is worried that this is, again, mediocre player on a bad team puts up good stats.
Yeah.
Like Michael Carter-Williams washed out.
Someone had to play.
Yeah, like you go back to Michael Carter-Williams, dude was putting up triple-doubles as a rookie, and then he's pretty much washed out of most rotations 4 or 5 years later. Because he was like, it was the process, the 76ers pre-Joel Embiid. And so you had a guy who had enough talent to kind of, since he was the only one there, doing some good things. And Cody Williams is starting to show that a little bit. And it's part of my worry about Ace Bailey too, because he's putting up good numbers, but how much of that is true capability and impact on winning, and how well is he going to fit into a smaller role? Because both of these guys next year, when the Jazz push toward win now mode, how are these guys going to fit into that role where Cody Williams ain't going to get 20 field goal attempts?
He's not going to have 37 minutes on the court.
Yeah. So how is he going to play in that smaller role? How is he going to provide value when, it's like going back to these guys in their college days. These guys were all stars for their college team, but with Sam Merrill, like he's found a way to fit into a role that is not like what he did in college. In college, he was the do everything guy.
Right. And
in the NBA, he is the do two things guy. He shoots threes and defends. He still has to be able to pass and do some other things, but like his two things are you shoot 3-pointers and you carry your weight on defense. Can Cody Williams and Ace Bailey fit into that kind of role where like your job, especially when you're younger, you got to prove that you can be on the court by playing defense and contributing to some kind of role on offense?
Yeah, I am encouraged by Ace Bailey in what he's kind of showcased this year. And you can see an upside potential for him, but it's all kind of like held in reserve because next year is going to be very different. The plan is to play to win, and Keontae George is going to play regularly, and Lauri Markkanen is going to play regularly, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to play regularly, and Walker Kessler is going to play regularly.
Yeah.
So how do you fit with these guys, and how do you continue to try to help the team win when you may not be the featured guy, but there are times when you will need to still make a play, and other times you may need to defer. But Coach Hardy's system is predicated on all guys helping out and all guys contributing. It's not clear out and let one guy go to work. That's not really how he operates. So I am interested to see kind of how that development continues when it is a very different philosophy with very different talent around him. But I like what I'm seeing so far in how he's showcasing his ability to understand the NBA game and showcase some of his own abilities. And Cody Williams, to that degree as well, like he doesn't get on the floor and get as many minutes. Maybe not. I mean, now it doesn't matter. But back in January and February, he's getting on the floor and getting minutes because he's showing a willingness to do things defensively. And even though the offense wasn't always there, he was still justifying minutes on the court. And now the offense is starting to pick up and make more sense to him as well. And then on the other way, I flip that around, is Kyle Filipowski. He's a guy who has shown his ability to do things offensively, but he can be a defensive liability. He's not a great defender. At least he wasn't at the beginning of the year, but he has improved a lot over the course of the season. So it's been fun watching his development from rookie to sophomore, who has a lot of different things in his bag that he can do offensively, but can he defend? Can he hold his weight against other guys his size? And while he's not an elite defender, he's not as much of a liability as he was when he was a rookie.
Yeah, and you got to be able to develop that way. So, and I think for Cody Williams and Ace Bailey, like the biggest key for them next year, they've got to be able to be defensive, like guys who can, if you took away all of their offense, like they would be able to stay on the court. Maybe not that extreme. We don't need Andre Roberson out there, but they need to be able to earn minutes through their defense and doing things that role players need to do, the stuff that Sam Merrill is able to do. And just list any role player. Like I keep picking on Sam Merrill, but that's because he's a familiar name. Like go do the things that role players can do, and that can change depending on position. Because Neemias Queta plays within his role. Sam Merrill plays within his role. They're two very different types of roles, but there are things that they do that are not star level things. They're not running pick and rolls and doing a lot of on ball stuff. But Neemias Queta rebounds and rim protects really well. Sam Merrill defends and shoots threes really well. And, among a bunch of other small things that can be part of a greater whole in a successful lineup.
Yeah, can you be a slasher and a finisher? Can you still defend? Can you hit the three from time to time?
Yeah.
What things can you do? Multiple things can you do at a really good level rather than be a kind of a do-everything guy?
Yeah, so like for Ace Bailey, I think his is, can you be a catch and shoot or catch and attack closeout type of player? He's showing that capability right now. On a play where they're smothering Keontae George, can he come off a little curl in a screen and, catch and shoot, that kind of stuff. Where it's not every play. He's not, again, running the pick and roll himself with Walker Kessler, but can he attack in those situations, again, along with carrying your weight on defense and all those different things. So it's not one type of glove. You don't have to be specifically a 3-and-D or that. As I said, you can be a slasher. And that's your role on offense. Is you're a really good slasher. You can still hit the three-pointer to keep teams honest.
Right.
But like remember, Alec Burks was really good at that, where he was really good at slashing to the rim, and that was something that he did decently well. So find what you do well on offense, carry your weight on defense, rebound, pass at a decent enough level. You don't have to be a point forward out there, but pass well enough to be able to move the ball around. And those are the things we want to see Ace Bailey and Cody Williams be able to do. And they are showing some flashes of all of their things, again, within their own specific archetype of player, because they're not the exact same player, but they're showing flashes within their own, their own spheres.
Currently looking at the standings, Utah is currently 5th from the bottom. They're the 5th worst team. When you look at the lottery race, they're in the number 5 position right now. Indiana and Washington are tied. Then it's Brooklyn, Sacramento, and then Utah. Sacramento has 2 more losses than Utah does, so it might be hard for the Jazz to overtake Sacramento. And then behind the Jazz are the Dallas Mavericks, who are 3 games back. And then it's the Pelicans even further back from that. So Utah is pretty much in that spot. All these teams are losing games. Right now, Jazz have lost 6 in a row. Everyone around them has losing streaks galore as the race to the bottom continues. Over the last, what are we at, like 2 weeks? Last week and a half, 2 weeks? It's almost over.
Most teams have about 6. I was looking at the remaining strength of schedule, and the vast majority of teams are at 6 games left, but give or take 1. Some are at 5, some are at 7.
Yeah, so not very many games left for the Utah Jazz, and you wouldn't suspect there'd be very many other games on the schedule where they could win a game.
They have one of the toughest remaining schedules. According, I'm looking at Tankathon. They're like 4th toughest schedule.
They played Denver tonight, though. They took Denver late into the fourth quarter.
They did.
Last time they played them.
We'll see how that goes. But yeah, like the only way they can catch Sacramento is again, they have to lose out, and Sacramento has to win at least 2 more games. I don't consider that likely. They've won 19 games all year out of 76 or something like that. Are they going to manage to win 2 out of their next 6? I would consider that unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah, Sacramento's final schedule includes games at Toronto, at home versus New Orleans. So
there's a chance
it might sneak a win there on accident. Hosting the Clippers, go to Golden State, host Golden State, and then finish at Portland. So there's 2 games on that schedule where they might accidentally win a game.
Portland and New Orleans, sometimes you surprise one of the teams like the Clippers or something like that. Maybe you catch them on a night where they're resting some of their players. But yeah, I wouldn't consider it likely that they jump into that 4 spot in the lottery. So again, I'll expect them to stay in that number 5 spot. And again, that gives them a 0.6% chance of losing their draft pick. But as opposed to if they move up to 4th, it would guarantee if they were in that 4th spot in the lottery, no matter how much Adam Silver might shake his fist at the sky and try to rig the lottery results, he could not give the pick to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, they would pick no lower than 8th.
Yeah, that would be the absolute lowest that the way the lottery odds work, that is the absolute lowest they could go is 8th. As of now, the absolute lowest they can go is 9th. Even though it is an incredibly small chance, there is still a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yes, there is a chance. Funnily enough, the Jazz end up at 5th. There is a 97.8 chance, I believe, that they don't get the 5th overall pick. Like the lowest odds, like the lowest odds for any pick, so again, 1 through 9, the lowest odds of any of those is 9. The second lowest is 5. The spot they'd be at in the lottery, like based on their record.
Based on their position.
Like not 6, 7, 8, like those are all, in some cases, way higher. It's 2.2% chance they get the 5th pick. And it's like, and 6, it's like 19.6, and 7 is 26.7. Like it's like, what the heck? There's like a quarter chance the Jazz fall 2 spots.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. We're overdue for a break, so we'll come back. The NCAA cracking down on ghost transfers. So Halloween, we got April Fool's Day. We got Halloween ghost transfers.
Spooky.
We'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Reminder, indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Eric, we need one of those here. Stat.
We need an in-home assessment of how our air is doing
Your
here.
office is hazardous at this point because it's within
keep the door closed.
It's within the contamination zone of all the because they're refinishing all the wood line. I forget all the technical terms for all this stuff, but basically anything that has a wood surface is getting that refinish, and all the people who are doing that fine work are wearing gas masks for a reason.
Right.
And Eric's just sitting there typing away on his computer. Let's close the door. You need a window in that office. Is the wall on that side like not connected to the outside?
It's all cinder block in that
So
area.
it
used to be the edge of the building.
But it's not the edge of the building anymore, though, because
No. Then it's into the
it's like the
conference room.
Conference room or the break room is about where that cuts off. So
Yeah.
So yeah,
I guess you're right. Well, conference room on one side, break room on the other.
Yeah, so you can't get a window.
No,
And
my
at least-
door
at
has a
least
little
you
window.
you can't get a window to the outside because that's what would be helpful is you crack a window. But
I moved a sheet of paper today on my desk and hey, there's an outline.
There's an
Perfect outline of that paper.
yeah, just that was crazy to see. It's like, geez, and that's kind of the way everything was today. So a little hazardous air quality, but. If you don't have an excuse like we do for your air quality, maybe give Mountain Valley Heating and Air a
That's
try.
a good idea.
We have a few texts on the Young Power Sports Logan text line. We were talking about Spectrum hosting NCAA tournament games. 8968 saying they did opening rounds at the NCAA the first year it was open. I'm assuming the Spectrum. The Aggies played BYU.
Okay.
Weber played Long Beach. Both got whipped. Then in the 80s, they hosted a first round of the tournament. I went to all of them. So certainly can attest to that. 5338. Also chiming in, saying the Spectrum did host the NCAA tournament first 2 rounds at least once back in the 80s. Remember Georgetown coming in with Patrick Ewing and Coach John Thompson.
I remember hearing about this, yeah.
USU would also bring concerts and comedy shows typically for homecoming week. So, yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Ewing paid a visit to Logan.
I think I was vaguely aware of that for some reason.
Yeah, 9315 also on the text line. Can you guys do an update on what Aggie players are in
the NBA?
In rosin?
I think that's just Aggies in the NBA.
Who's entrapped in rosin in the NBA? Also, any Olin, the G League?
Yeah, so there's the G League playoffs started yesterday, continue today. I can only specifically remember 2 Aggies in the G League, Taylor Funk and Darius Brown. Next, Shoga might be in there.
Shoga depending was on the Celtics roster.
Is he on the floor, or do they send him down to the G League, though? Because Darius Brown is technically on the roster for...
Shulga actually played on Sunday.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he got 2 minutes on the court.
So it must have been a blowout. If you get 2 minutes on the court, it means you either got injured or...
114-99 over Charlotte.
Yeah, so got in at the very end there.
So he played on Sunday. I don't know if he played just the other day.
Yeah, but...
Nimi played in that same game with 17 points, 8 boards, 1 steal, 1 block. Plus 13 on the night for Nimi.
So
but he didn't play in their most recent game because he sprained his thumb in that game.
Yeah, so Sam Merrill and Nemish Keta doing as they normally do. Obviously, Nemish having a bit of an interruption due to injury. But continuing along, being starters for contending teams in the East. Darius Brown, while he did sign a contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers specifically, where before he was just signed with their G League team. So I think he has now played NBA minutes. But he's still, I think, largely on the...
Mostly plays on the G League team.
Yeah, because he didn't play... I don't even know if he was on the official roster for the game a couple days ago against the Jazz.
He did not play.
Yeah, he didn't play.
I don't know if he traveled with the team.
And he didn't even show up on the box score as a DNP.
Yeah.
Trying to find him here.
But Max...
Has he actually played minutes yet this year?
While you look for that, Max Shulga has played... in a number of games recently, but as you've said, they're mostly in blowouts, and it's only a few minutes at a time here and there. So he is on the roster, and he is seeing the court, but just not a lot as of yet.
And Darius Brown has played in 1 game. He played 3 minutes, and it was back in February. So he's generally been And I think he's been on the active roster a couple of times. I think the last time he shows is inactive, but like on the game day roster was back in early March, like a month ago. So I believe he's with the Cleveland Charge. Like the NBA G League playoffs, like their promotion graphic has Darius Brown on it, along with a couple of other. James Bouknight. Oh, remember him? He's like a top 10 pick, and then Lester something starts with a Q from the Magic, something Magic, whatever city they're in. But yeah, I think Taylor Funk is still with the Capital City Go-Go. Last I checked, I'm not 100% sure. But that's kind of where he's been hanging around recently. I haven't checked in on him.
Yeah.
But those are kind of your Aggies in the NBA that I've
There are a
mostly
number
kept
of
tabs
Aggies
on.
who are playing internationally.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and I don't do a good job. Like, Utah State Film Room, there's an account on Twitter. He does a really good job of actually keeping track of a lot of different former Aggies. Like, guys,
and occasionally Utah State will send out kind of an update, Aggies in the pros.
But like, there's guys that I'd forgotten were Aggie players. I'm like, oh yeah, Shane Rector's still. I think he's still playing basketball somewhere. In USU Film Room keeps digging those up and does a lot of great work, like showing highlight reels.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a lot of great work there. So yeah, that's the update there. So as we tease going into the break, ghost transfers. And that's a term that I hadn't really heard, but Eric, you explained to me it's something we've talked about before, where essentially a player will bypass the transfer portal by basically unenrolling at a school and enrolling at another, which you can just do that. Like, it's not illegal in any sense. You're just moving from one school to the other. The NCAA has tried to control that process by having the transfer portal, but there have been a few players that, in the face of varying circumstances, have just unenrolled at one school and gone to another. That happened with a cornerback at Wisconsin who I think went to Miami. And it was a big deal because like there was a contract signed, like, hey, you're going to play here. And Wisconsin was trying to hold the player to that contract. They said, no, you can't do that. And so it was too late to enter the transfer portal, I think, at that point. And so he just unenrolled and then went and enrolled at the other school. It's like, I guess there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. And it's certainly closer to home at BYU. Retzlaff, the quarterback, got into trouble, honor code violation. He was going to be suspended. And the transfer portal had already come and gone. But he was going to be suspended and wasn't going to play the following year. And so instead he's like, okay, I'll just leave BYU, and somehow magically picks Tulane to enroll and is their starting quarterback. Wow.
Takes them to the playoff.
They have a position. And then he just enrolled and went there in the summer and was there in the fall camp and was their starting quarterback. So it was definitely outside the typical window of when a player could declare his intention to leave and for schools to sign or to add players out of the portal.
Yeah. So then while this was a fairly rare phenomenon, we've mentioned two, and I think there's probably still only need one hand to count all of the instances that it's happened, but it really had the potential to start taking off. Maybe not to the point where you're seeing like dozens and maybe even more than 100 cases, but like you might see a dozen or more cases, and that is something the
especially
NCAA,
with only one portal window now.
Yeah, with teams wanting to get players in the spring window, well, in the spring or post spring. Yeah, that really had the potential to, again, I don't know if it would have been a crazy ton, but it would be enough that it would become a real problem.
It's a way to get around it. You go through your spring ball, you don't like your coach, or some other teams like, we had an injury. We thought we had this position, but the guys we have aren't really that good. So we got to go find somebody. So when your spring or your winter semester is over, you just leave class and move to wherever we're at and we'll enroll you in the summer, and we're good to go.
Yeah, so that could have become, because coaches would have tried to abuse it.
Yes.
So there's
a loophole.
Yeah. So the NCAA, in a rare act of getting out ahead of something, has made a ruling, essentially a rule change, regarding this potential practice of ghost transfers. And basically it boils down to, like, if a team signs a player in this fashion, or I guess brings them in, because technically if you enroll and then you just bring them onto the football team, you will get penalized for doing so. And there are 2 specific penalties tied to that.
Yeah. Before we get to the penalties, just there's 3 actions here really that triggers this.
Yeah.
So if you can get penalized if you sign a transfer student athlete, add a transfer student athlete to a roster, or allow a transfer student athlete to participate in athletically related activities before the student athlete is entered into the NCAA transfer portal. So if he's on campus and he's working out, that would be athletically related activities.
Yeah.
So the which they say will be automatically triggered. The sports head coach. So this isn't just football. This isn't basketball. This is for all of college athletics. So the sports head coach, the team's head coach, will be suspended for 50% of the season. Half the season will be gone. He cannot coach. He or she will not be allowed to coach. And that school's budget will be fined 20%. The school will be fined 20% of their athletic budget. That could be a pretty hefty fine.
Yeah. Well, for anybody, and especially in an age where spending is bloated and a bunch of athletic directors are complaining about how expensive it is, this isn't one of those it's legal for a price type of violations. This is one where
we're willing to pay the price to get that athlete.
If you want to mess around, you are going to find out.
Yes.
For some of these programs with budgets that are almost in the hundreds of millions, that's going to cost them, tens of millions. Is one player worth tens of millions? No, not a single one. So they're not going to do it. So assuming this stands, because the first legal challenge will be when a team tries to sign a player, again, under these circumstances where they unenroll and then try and re-enroll at the new school, and they're going to take it before a local judge who's an alum of whatever school it is, and can they win that legal challenge when it gets taken to court? I don't know if this is going to, given that this rule is in place and the NCAA has come down hard on it, the coaches may decide, okay, whatever, it's not worth the effort for us to try and go over that again just for one player. Are you willing to fight a whole court battle for one football player? Maybe for one basketball player, because again, we know the impact of one basketball player versus one football player. But we'll see. Is there somebody that's going to try and challenge this? Can the NCAA uphold it? Or will the threat of it just be enough to put this to bed where nobody's going to bother to challenge it? So even if it would lose in court, nobody's going to bother to fight it. And so it just remains a rule.
Yeah. So hopefully the intent here is to cut down on tampering that exists and takes place after the portal windows open and close.
Because that's exactly the kind of stuff is that all of these types of ghost transfers would be tampering transfers.
Right.
Not just, I kind of want to I know Jake Retzlaff was just kind of a weird situation. Tulane wasn't tampering with him. That just kind of fell into their lap, which makes it feel unfair for imagine Tulane getting punished for something like that. I guess. Or maybe it's also just a fact of make Jake Retzlaff face the music for breaking the rules of his university.
Trying to run away from your consequences. So
yeah, so that's something. So yeah, the loophole here was for explicit tampering. It's why I'm glad that the rules are and the punishment is really harsh. Because you don't have Georgia saying, well, we have a ton of money to throw around. Well, the money you're going to have to pay for one player is $20 million. Good luck with that.
Yeah. So in this notice today with this rules change, there's this task force that the NCAA has put together with their board of directors.
A task force, not just a committee, a task force.
An infractions process task force. But they're going to be getting together soon, and they're going to talk about enforcing transfer rules and penalties associated with tampering violations. And that's been a real problem. We have players showing their coaches, here's a coach from a competing school telling me, hey, if I get out of class right now and come to his school, this is how much money he's going to give me. It's so there is tampering that's widespread. It's happening all year long.
You might say, Eric, and it's the wild, wild west.
It's bad news. They've got to clean it up.
Yeah. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. A reminder of our text line sponsor, Young Power Sports of Logan. And this Saturday, April 4th, 10 to noon, Young Power Sports Logan has an Easter egg hunt. It's free, family fun. They got 4 age groups and a $100 golden egg in each of those age groups that you can win by, I suppose, by finding a golden egg.
Whoever finds it first, it holds on to it.
Yeah, hold on. Eric's roaming around looking to see who has the golden egg.
Yeah, better conceal it well.
It's like, I've got it, and then all of a sudden it gets bowled over by Eric. It's like, yes, I am 4 years old. I'm in this age group. So one thing, we were talking about the transfers and the transfer portal. And I know we were focusing kind of a little bit more about football because that's where some of these like ghost transfers we were talking about were more common. College basketball has its own problem with random people showing up on rosters, but that's more about pro players trying to come back to college basketball. And there's some issues with that. But with the basketball transfer portal, even though it hasn't technically opened yet, it's effectively open. All but 4 teams, well, actually, no, there's still some teams that are playing, I guess. All but 8 teams?
Yeah, you got the NIT, you got the NCAA tournament. I guess there's the Royal.
Is the Crown happening?
Crown.
Is the Crown started yet?
I heard an ad about it earlier today.
So I guess all but, because there's 8 teams in the Crown? This feels like that. It's
got, some notable teams that are involved, but.
It's just feeling that like that Monty Python skit about the Spanish Inquisition. There's 4 teams left. No, 8 teams left. No, 16 teams. So there's most teams, like 350-ish of the teams are done.
Okay, so it's Oklahoma, Colorado, Baylor, Minnesota, Stanford, West Virginia, Rutgers, and Creighton. So those are your teams in the Crown.
Has become the Power Conference NIT, and the NIT has become the mid-major postseason tournament.
Pretty much, yeah.
That seems kind of wrong.
Pretty much.
But the transfer portal is effectively open, even though it technically isn't. And there's more names that are coming in. So I've been tracking Mountain West teams and Pac-12 teams, largely just by looking at Evan Mia's list of who's in the transfer portal, which his comes from verbal commits. So I'm like, third level of information here. But looking through the teams, we talked, Grand Canyon, Mekhi Williams already announced that, but Dusty Stromer, one of their key bench players. Hawaii, an incoming Mountain West team, has a couple of players that have entered the portal. San Jose, we mentioned Colby Garland, Adrian Myers, and I think Ben Rosenborough. I think we mentioned that he was in the portal. UNLV, I think we discussed Miles Shea, but 2 since then, Naz Cunningham and Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Now they're keeping Tyron Jones, which is really big, but they're not going to hang on to Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, who had one of the best offensive seasons in Mountain West history.
Yeah, Tyron Jones made it official. He is committed to stay, but Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn has declared his intentions to explore his options. Which likely means he's going to go.
Yeah, and another incoming Mountain West school, UTEP, has a couple of players that have entered the portal. Looking at the Pac-12, where we're going to have a little bit more interest here with Utah State going to the Pac-12, but Boise State, they've had a few players enter the portal, key players. R.J. Keene had put his name in last time we talked, but 2 more big ones, starters, Drew Fielder and Javen Buchanan. Although it has been noted that Buchanan does not necessarily have another year of eligibility, he would have to get a waiver. I believe waivers for like JUCO and whatnot, like they've been granted for players in his situation, but those were like blanket waivers that applied in previous years. We'll see if he can get one to continue playing. So like he's maybe we'll get to play again, but has declared his intention to enter the transfer portal if he gets that eligibility.
Okay.
Colorado State has a player who's into the portal whose name I cannot pronounce. Augustinus Kudulas?
Kudulas, yeah.
Is that how you say it?
He's a Lithuanian.
Okay. Yeah. So why didn't you say this name?
Well, I don't have the list.
Come over here and read this name for me. Fresno State has about 8 players in there, 7. We mentioned a few: Deshaun Gorey, Jacques Manny, Gasper Kosovar, Makan Diouf. Some recent ones that we didn't announce or talk about last time we went over this. Zane Collins, one of their starting guards. Wilson Jacques, productive center for them. A guy who could get a double-double, maybe a block or 2 in a game. Big 7-footer. And then David Douglas. Still no portal updates that I'm aware of for Gonzaga or Oregon State. For San Diego State, no updates as of them having BJ Davis and Miles Bird, both intending to enter the transfer portal. For Texas State, Frank Emau, some player named Frank on their team.
Frank.
Utah State, no changes since Carson Templin and David Uweezy have announced their intentions to go into the portal. Washington State, another one with a lot of players. They're also at 7. We mentioned Case Wynot, Emilialaho, Emmanuel Ugbo, Andy Okafor. This one says Richards Vavers. It's spelled Richards, but it's missing the C, which makes me suspicious. Is that a typo or is that his actual name?
I don't know.
And then Thomas Thrasterson and Parker Garretts. So I don't know really much about those players at the moment, how key those are, but I know Washington State and Fresno State have a lot of players in the portal. Few other players have some key guys in the portal, like Utah State, San Diego State, and Boise State, while Gonzaga, Oregon State, and Texas State haven't necessarily been hit by the portal hard just yet.
Yeah, and I think that Fresno State surprises me the most. I think that was a team that was showing promise, improving year over year, and as they move into the Pac-12, if they could keep that trend continuing, they would be a respectable program. But when you have that much roster turnover, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that many players are exiting that program.
Yeah,
because the year before they were bad.
Yeah.
But this last year they weren't great, but they were winning some games.
Yeah, they were better. They were more competitive. They didn't have players betting against themselves or whatnot. So they didn't have literal legal problems among their players. Not that the team itself had legal problems, but yeah, still struggling to get some consistency year to year. But that's kind of the curse that bad programs can have is you have to have a good year, or if you have a bad year, everyone wants to transfer. And then, like, what are you supposed to do when you have no continuity? You can't have a good year. Like, Utah State is dang lucky that Danny Sprinkle took that team to
self-perpetuating.
Yeah, where he was able to kind of keep the Aggies out of that hole. In New Mexico, too, with Eric Olin. He was able to keep New Mexico from falling into that. So. But some programs really struggle to get out of that hole. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up kind of the way we started the show. More April Fool's shenanigans. Eric found a nice thread of different things. And also another Calprint-themed joke, I suppose, from Utah State, though related to one of their equipment trucks. We'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press as we begin to wind things down here on another edition of the show. Thank you to everyone who listened or watched as we always on the airwaves on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, and streaming online at the mobile app and the website, but also on YouTube where you can see myself and Eric Frandsen, the age and the beauty.
Who's who?
I don't know. I certainly ain't the beauty. I have too many chins for that. But
April Fools, everybody.
Yeah.
1st of April.
Hope you didn't get hit by like a mean prank. Like I prefer pranks that are just kind of fun for both. Like I rickrolled Eric in the middle of the show. Like it's not like I like dumped a bucket of ice water on him in the middle of the show. Like that would be
ha.
Yeah, ha ha. You now have, I've now crippled you. It's like, come on, people.
I've seen a few that people have fallen for. Like there was one saying that Las Vegas would start to charge for AC in your room. And if you want, depending on how much you wanted to pay and how cool you wanted it.
Problem is that's too believable.
Yeah, like private equity getting involved. You never know.
Which granted, sometimes that can be the best April Fool's pranks is the ones that are believable until you actually kind of think about it and then you realize.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would get a small spray bottle to squirt on your face to cool off.
Yeah.
But a couple of athletics departments getting in on the fun. Anna Maria College saying they're going to turn their field to maroon. Of course, that's an April Fool's joke. Western Texas College announcing a logo change. They're the Westerners. It looks like basically a cowboy. And it went from just like the head with a hat, cowboy hat, to it looks like something out of an early 90s video game, like super muscle-bound cowboy, changing their logo. But I got to read you their statement on this. It says, following extensive research, creative collaborations, and unnecessary meetings that could have been done through email, our department has determined that the time has come to move forward with a new logo for Western Texas College Athletics.
I love how they like hide in there the fact that it's a joke by throwing in that meeting that could have been an email, because like that's what clues you in on they're having a load of fun with it.
Yes. Virginia football announcing they're going to have chrome helmets, but it's like chrome that kind of fades to orange. Some people are like, this shouldn't be April Fool's. This looks cool. Let's do this for real.
That's the weird thing is like all these things that are like, well, wait, we don't want that to be April Fool's. Like with, again, the Battle Cattle helmets, like that was actually cool.
A couple from the state of Montana, Montana Grizzlies announcing they're going to put a dome over their field, which obviously they're not.
Yeah.
Then Montana Tech, and I'll end with this one because I know you've got one to get to. It's more Aggie related, but Montana Tech, they've announced the addition of swimming for next year. They've contracted for an 8-lane open water pool in the Berkeley Pit, giving ore digger swimmers the best training atmosphere in the NAIA. Of course, it's like, a pit from like
mining?
From a mine. Yeah, it's just like weird green muddy water.
Yeah, I can tell you do not want to swim in the waters that they put on those mines.
Yeah, who knows what other chemicals or
it is literally unsafe for
heavy
humans.
metals are in that water.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So obviously a joke.
Yes.
Another cow print, Holstein or whatever, how we're supposed to say
Holstein?
that. Holstein. See, this is why I'm a bit of an outsider to a farming community. But there was another aspect of that for Utah State where their equipment truck, they've got a somewhat popular Twitter account where they follow their journey of driving literally around the country and their journey where they don't get to fly. They've got to take all of the equipment, everything that a football team needs. Most of that ain't flying.
No.
Players' equipment, coaches' equipment, all this stuff.
Unless they go to Hawaii.
Yeah, unless they go to Hawaii, then it does have to fly. They can't drive there. But they showed a design where their entire truck, which is usually just mostly solid blue with a couple of the logos, but they showed one that was covered in the cow print design, which is kind of funny. And some of the fans, like, again, that kind of reaction, hey, maybe do this. And who knows, maybe one day they'll repaint it, but we'll see if they opt for that. But yeah, that's going to do.
You saw softball did the Battle Cattle helmets just the other day?
They? Yeah. Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah. So they involved the players themselves to apply the stickers on the helmets.
Oh, there you go.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Well, it's a lot of fun, but we now have to end the fun for today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more of the Full Court Press here on The Fan.